95% of the world's fastest sprinters share a specific gene variant. One gene, one protein. And people of West African ancestry carry it at higher rates than any other population on Earth. There is a very real chance it is inside your cells right now, doing exactly what it was built to do. And not one person in a white coat has ever said that to you. That is not a claim someone pulled out of thin air. That finding sits in peer-reviewed literature published in some of the most respected journals in human genetics. And it is just the beginning of what the science shows about the biological inheritance your ancestors passed down to you. Today we are talking about what you were actually built with. The gene is called ACTN3, alpha-actinin-3. It encodes a protein that lives exclusively in fast-twitch muscle fibers, the fibers responsible for explosive power, speed, and force generation. Carry the working version of this gene, and your fast-twitch fibers are loaded with this protein. A study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics found that among elite sprint athletes at the world-class level, the overwhelming majority carry at least one functional copy of the ACTN3 R allele, the version that produces the protein. And the research consistently shows that populations of West African descent carry this functional variant at significantly higher frequencies than European or East Asian populations. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You have heard science used against black bodies before. You have seen research twisted into justification for limiting what people who look like you are supposed to be or do. That skepticism is not paranoia. It is the correct response to a real history. What I want you to notice about what I just told you is the direction it points. This is not a story about deficits. This is a story about capacity, about what your lineage built into you. What does ACTN3 actually do in your body? Close your eyes for a second and think about this. Right now, somewhere in your thighs, your calves, your shoulders, there are muscle fibers that have been waiting. Fibers that fire in fractions of a second. When a working copy of the ACTN3 gene is present, the protein it produces helps stabilize the contractile machinery inside fast-twitch fibers. The fibers pull harder. They respond to power training differently than fibers that lack the protein. Subsequent research from scientists at the University of Glasgow and institutions in South Africa has reinforced this finding across multiple athletic populations, confirming that the link between African ancestry, ACTN3 frequency, and elite explosive performance is not a coincidence of culture or training environment alone. It is partly structural. It is in the fiber. Let me say that again. It is in the fiber. But that is still only the beginning of this conversation. Because the genetic inheritance of African ancestry is not one gene deep, it runs through every system in your body in ways that mainstream health content almost never stops to explain directly to you. Here is a fact that gets buried. Human beings evolved in Africa. All of us. The entire species spent the vast majority of its evolutionary history on the African continent before populations began migrating outward roughly 60 to 80,000 years ago. What that migration means genetically is something most people have never been told plainly. African populations carry more genetic diversity than all non-African populations combined. Say that out loud. The full range of human genetic variation, its deepest complexity, its widest biological landscape, is most completely expressed in populations of African descent. The people who left Africa carried a subset of that diversity. African populations retained it all. You have probably never sat in a doctor's office and heard that framing. Not because it is new science, researchers have known this for decades, but because the clinical world was not designed to celebrate what African ancestry carries. It was designed to measure you against averages that were built without you. That is the part nobody told you. Now let me bring this closer to home. One of the most consistently replicated findings in bone biology is this. Black Americans have significantly higher bone mineral density than white Americans. The research on this point is not preliminary or contested. It has been confirmed across age groups, across both men and women, and after accounting for variables like body weight and physical activity. Studies published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research and supported by data from the National Institutes of Health have shown that this difference is clinically meaningful. Black Americans fracture bones at lower rates after equivalent trauma. older black women have substantially lower rates of osteoporosis compared to their white counterparts. Now I want you to sit with something. You have been to the doctor, you have had blood drawn, vitals checked, maybe imaging done, and at no point did anyone say to you, your bone architecture is one of your health strengths. Here is your density number, and here is what it means for your body specifically. That conversation did not happen. Not because you did not deserve it, because the system was never set up to deliver it. Partly what is driving the bone density difference comes down to genetics. Variants in genes that regulate calcium absorption, vitamin D receptor sensitivity, and the proteins involved in bone remodeling appear at different frequencies in populations of African descent. The VDR gene, which encodes the vitamin D receptor, has variants that influence how efficiently the body uses vitamin D to build and maintain bone tissue. Certain variants associated with more efficient bone metabolism are found more commonly in people of African ancestry. The body is using that vitamin D differently, and the result shows up in the density of your bones. I want to pause here for a moment, because this content is educational. It is not a prescription. It is not a replacement for a real conversation with your personal physician about your individual health. Everything I share on this channel is drawn from peer-reviewed science and official health data, but your biology is your own. Your doctor needs to know you, not just the averages. What I want you to take from today is the knowledge that gives you better questions to bring into that room. Now there is a third chapter of this story I want to get to before we close. She had been going to the same clinic for 6 years. Every time she left, something felt off. Not because the doctor was unkind, not because the tests were not run, but because she would sit in that car afterward and think, those numbers they showed me, who are they actually for? That reference range on the printout, who was in the study that built it? She had no way to answer that question. And so she went home and took the medication and kept the follow-up appointment and carried that quiet doubt alone for 6 more years. What she did not know is that a significant portion of the reference ranges and treatment guidelines she was being measured against were developed using research populations that were predominantly white, predominantly male, and heavily skewed toward Western clinical settings. Her results were being read through a lens that was not calibrated for her biology. That is not a theory or a conspiracy. It is documented in the scientific literature on research representation and health disparities. Understanding your genetic strengths and understanding the research gaps that have harmed you are not separate conversations. They are the same conversation. The more clearly you understand what your ancestry actually gave you, the muscle architecture, the bone structure, the depth of immune diversity that comes from evolving in the world's most pathogenically complex environment, the better equipped you are to walk into a medical setting and say, measure me correctly. Study me the way you have studied others. Give me information built on data that includes me. Think about what that shift means, not just for you, for every person in your family who has been handed a printout and sent home with answers designed for someone else. Here is what I want you to do with what you learned today. First, if you are over 40 and you have never had a bone density assessment, ask your doctor why not. Your higher baseline density is not a reason to skip the conversation. It is a reason to know your own actual numbers, not someone else's assumptions. Second, if you are physically active or starting a new training program, understand that your body may respond to power-based and resistance training in ways that reflect your genetic architecture. Work with that, not around it. Third, ask your doctor about pharmacogenomic testing, the science of how your genes affect how your body processes medications. Dosing standards for some of the most commonly prescribed drugs were developed without adequate representation of Black patients. Your genes may process those medications differently. You deserve to know. If what you heard today opened something up, if it raised a question you have been carrying for years, or made you think about someone in your family who deserved better answers, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me, what is one biological truth about your body that no one in a clinical setting has ever taken the time to explain to you? Let this community be the place where that conversation finally happens. And if this channel is what you have been looking for, real science for your body built around your history, subscribe. Share this video with someone who has been sitting in that parking lot with those same questions. Every person who watches is one more person who walks into their next appointment knowing what they are actually carrying. Your ancestry is not a footnote in someone else's research. It is the foundation of the entire human story. What your lineage passed to you, the density in your bones, the architecture in your muscle fibers, the range in your immune system, that is the product of the oldest and most tested human biology on Earth. This channel exists to make sure you know it.